Hi, everybody. Welcome to Breaking Free, Living Well. My name is Gaspar Anastasi. I'm here with my wonderful, loving wife, Michelle.
Hi, everyone.
We're going to be talking about how to get free from emotional bondage and how to live a life that is filled with God's joy and God's presence. And it sounds almost too good to be true, especially when we begin to talk about the marriage and how oftentimes we find ourselves with a lot of excess baggage in our marriage and a lot of hurts that continue on, actually many times get worse in life.
Definitely. I don't think that there's a person alive that doesn't bring some kind of baggage into their marriage with them. You know, childhood hurts,
right.
Just all kinds of things.
Yeah, I think it's important to recognize, and it took us a while to do that, that opposites do attract.
Yes.
Because I remember that when we first got married, being married now 57 years, that we both tried to change each other to be like what we were,
Right.
to like the things that we liked, to do the things that we did and we liked. And we found out that many times that wasn't always together. We weren't always in unity, that we were different. But when you really accept the differences in your mate, you really begin to have a sense of oneness and unity, and even happiness can come when you finally reach that goal.
The funny thing is that the things that attract us to our mate, after we get married, those are the very same things that end up driving us crazy. And that's when wanting to change each other starts.
Yeah, because I was attracted to the things that I didn't have in my life that you did, and I liked them. And that happens often with our either future mate or when you're married for the first couple of years. We're attracted to those things. But the very thing that you're attracted to is the very thing that many times brings a sense of inferiority, a sense of maybe even unworthiness, because you don't necessarily have that. Your mate has it. And so you married them because it was wonderful, and they were different than you, and you like what they had, but then when you're living with it, it made you feel inferior, it made you feel unworthy, and you wind up having distancing yourself rather than embracing and celebrating our differences.
One of the things that I loved about you was that you were so giving and generous, and you'd give someone the shirt off of your back. And I thought that was a good quality. And then we got married, and you started giving my things away, and I didn't think it was so good anymore.
You said that you loved, is that past tense? I mean, I hope that that has not changed, and you still love me because I am a giver. And of course, I know that's true. But I think that's what happens, that we don't understand that. And what brought us together, because we loved each other's differences, winds up being the very thing that drives us apart.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because what brought us together now drives us apart. But I think if we understand that it really is the plan of God that we do come together in our differences, because we have to trust God. We have to lean on God's strength and courage and God's unconditional love to pour out to our mate. I mean, if everybody was the same as you wouldn't have to go any further in your walk with God. That would be fine. You love yourself, that's it, everything's fine. But if something's different, now you have to stretch yourself more to love them.
And you've got to, you have to depend on the Lord, because it's really not anything that you could do in your own strength. Yeah. Because, like you said before, we each think that we're right and that the other person is wrong.
Yeah.
So we really need the help of the Holy Spirit in our marriage to help us see the truth and to help us change.
Yeah, and it took a while, actually. It didn't happen right away. We had to learn that process, but what made us learn the process is because we came to the end of ourselves.
Yeah.
We gave up trying to change you gave up trying to change me, and basically we started giving up on the marriage because we didn't understand that to become one, that there is a process of dying to yourself and learning how to love your mate the way Christ loved you. And that really is the process that we have to go through. It's a great process. We don't necessarily like it, but in the end, it brings great results and brings true, I would say happiness, but true oneness.
And I really think that most couples go into marriage not realizing that there's going to be a changing and a dying to self. And that's why after they're married a year, 2, 3, and problems start, and they're wondering, what, did I marry the wrong person? It shouldn't be like this. But marriage is hard.
It is.
And nobody tells you that marriage is hard.
No, we're taught how to ride a bicycle and drive a car and do other things, but we're not really taught how to live a happy marriage, because the blueprint of happy marriages comes in the Bible, the Word of God.
Yes.
And many times we're not focused on that or never been
No.
taught that. But once you come to the end of yourself, you begin to now realize that there's a pattern that God sets for us to have great success.
Yes.
You know, we do a lot of counseling, whether it be marriage counseling. We do a lot of coaching, whether it be life coaching that you do, or marriage counseling that we both do, or Stop Hurting, Start Healing, the inner healing aspect of it. And in the marriage counseling and coaching, we find that a lot of times people really don't have any track to live on. They don't have a vision to go forward. They're stuck in the old. And, and they keep hurting each other to where they're no longer able to produce this love that they once found. I was talking to a couple just recently, and they said, our first year of marriage was great. He said, but then everything went downhill from them. And I said, well, what did you do in the first year of your marriage? Well, we had a great time. We loved each other. We overlooked each other's faults, and then
Exactly.
eventually
Yeah.
they wound up changing and now started
Yes.
looking at each other's faults and started blaming each other for the problems that they actually had in their own life.
Right. So true.
Yeah, it's true. So marriage counseling is important. It'll help you. In fact, we have I guess we can call it a wonderful ministry called Sacred Marriage. Maybe talk about that just for a little bit.
Oh, yeah. We've been doing that now. Oh, gosh.
A lot of years.
A lot of years. It's been called different things over the years, but I guess for maybe about the past 10, 12 years now, it's been called Sacred Marriage.
Yeah, sacred.
And because, when we first got saved, God brought us back together again. We were separated. And I don't know about you, but I thought all we needed was Jesus.
Right.
And everything was going to work out. And we got back together, and everything didn't work out because we didn't have godly principles,
Right, middle and principles.
to build our marriage on.
Yeah, exactly.
We still weren't communicating. We still didn't know how to resolve conflicts. We still didn't even know about the roles, godly roles of a husband and wife. So that's what made us get into the marriage groups, because we figured, if here we are in ministry struggling with marriage, what about other couples? And that's what Sacred Marriage is all about, teaching godly principles.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in our next segment, and maybe share a little bit more how it's really helped a lot of the couples begin to establish a good or a better, or maybe for the first time, a good foundation to build their marriages on. You know, we often say marriage is made in heaven, but it's worked out down here on earth. And if you don't work at your marriage, it's not going to work. Like anything else, if you put a lot of time and energy into something and study about it and learn all the facets of it, you're going to have a greater opportunity to have success. And that's really what Sacred Marriage does. And we're going to have another one real soon. We'll talk about that, in our next segment. But, we're blessed to be here with you, and Breaking Free Living Well is so, so important. So stay tuned. We're going to come right back right after these few announcements.
Our inner healing program, Stop Hurting, Start Healing, helps people break free from past trauma, difficult emotional and life issues, and equipping them to lead a healthy life. This successful faith-based program is founded on biblical principles, allowing God to expose and heal the root of the issues, coming into that place of not only breaking free, but living well. How do I know if I need inner healing? If you keep going through the same negative cycles in your life, if you have a strong overreaction to a situation, or get emotional or angry thinking about someone or a past event, you have unprocessed emotional needs or wounds. If you or someone you know isn't living their best, check out our website breakingfreecc.com or call 239-244-3912. We are compassionate and care about you and the destiny God has for you.
Welcome back, everybody, to Breaking Free Living Well. And we're going to be talking again about sacred marriages, as we left off just a few minutes ago before this wonderful announcement that we had. And we saw a lot of great success with couples. I mean, couples that it's not a counseling session.
No,
and I think that's important to differentiate.
And a lot of couples think that it's for couples that have bad marriages, but it's for everybody. It's really teaching you how to have a godly marriage, which we all need to know. And we found so many successes from newlyweds to oldlyweds. Couples of all ages, and I think that people come, it's funny, once they start coming, they don't want to stop. And we do offer different topics all the time.
Yeah.
But there becomes a camaraderie between the couples that they get so close, because it's nice having couple friends that are working at their marriage.
Yeah, working together. Christians,
Yes.
they're working together.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the aids that helps couples, because they're not just hanging out with people with all different levels of marriage issues and problems and not always talking about their problems. Here they're coming together with couples that are wanting to look at life through different lenses and seeing the solutions, and they're working together and encouraging each other. I was just looking up the date on the phone. So the next one is September 17th, which means that you still have time if you'd like to sign up. It is free. It's on Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, and probably we end about 8:30, 9 o'clock the latest.
And it's 10 sessions.
10 sessions, yeah. Yeah, we're dealing topics like what's our differences and how to deal with our differences. We're talking about having the right attitude, learning how to deal with that. And, going back to go forward, to deal with some of the issues we might have. A lot of wonderful sharing with one another. I like that about the group, that people are not afraid to share.
Yes.
Because everybody feels comfortable there. And it's not a counseling session. We're not digging up people's dirt and talking about that. I think that's one of the reasons people don't come to these things, because they're afraid that we have to deal with the problem or be blamed for the problem. But it's not about that at all.
No.
But it's very, very successful. So that's really a great asset.
And then we have another sacred marriage that starts in February for 10 weeks. We hold it 2 times a year.
Right. Yeah, we enjoy doing it. It's a blessing for us, and we are excited about the fruitfulness that we see. You don't see people working at their marriage that often. It's almost like an accepted thing. You're married, it's up to you to make it good. And we don't realize that we need the help. We need the coaching. We need the counseling. We need the inner healing. We need a lot of those type of things that can really help us to become stronger. And we have to be willing to want to work at our marriage.
Yes.
And it takes 2 people to make it happen.
Definitely.
Yeah. So we invite you. It's going to be on the 17th of September. It's a Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. And we start off
Give
with...
the church, the address of the church.
Oh, that's a nice idea. 6111 South Point Boulevard. And that's really Word of Life Church. 6111 South Point Boulevard, Fort Myers. So we were talking about having the differences in our marriage, and how we started off really enjoying that in our lives because we didn't have it. We saw our mate have it. If you're quiet and your mate is outgoing, you're attracted to that. If your mate is has a great mind to do numbers and mathematical issues, and you don't, you're attracted to that because you're attracted to things that you don't have. The problem is, though it starts off that way, when you get married, those same things can cause you to feel inferior, can cause you to feel unworthy, can cause you to feel like, this person is always making me feel like they're smarter than us. And before you know it, the very things you were attracted to wind up becoming barriers that wind up separating the 2 of you. And it's an issue that can happen.
Yeah.
And we've seen it happen over and over again.
It happens in our own marriage.
Yeah.
We see it in every marriage because God has a sense of humor, and he puts opposites together and says, okay, now, work it out. But the thing is he knows we can't work it out without him. Yeah. So it's really, I think it's God's plan to help draw us to him. Because either what's going to happen is we're going to have such problems and live miserable, or we're going to get divorced.
Right.
So
no in between.
No in between.
I think one of the assignments that we gave to our couples was to identify the differences, identify them, write them down. And discover them in your mate, discover them, in you. And once you have them down, to actually celebrate them and not look in a negative way about them, but to actually celebrate them, to actually give thanks to God for that, and to be able to encourage each other in those differences. Because if you reject another person's differences, you're rejecting them. Because who you are is those differences. It's who you are. It's what you do and who you are, how God made you up and your personality. So if you start rejecting your mate's differences and say, well, hey, they're not good, we don't need them, you're now rejecting your mate, And that creates a lot of pain and anguish. And that's where a lot of problems stay and maybe never get better until they have a healing that takes place. Healing comes in many different ways. But one of the ways is through Stop Hurting, Start Healing, which is an inner healing ministry that Breaking Free Living Well actually offers. And it's a great, great ministry. And we'll talk about that in maybe one of our segments as we go forward. But let's talk now, about the couples that we see have come to our group and the success stories. In fact, we're going to have a couple of them come and give some testimony.
Yes, that'll be fun.
And sharing their testimony. But one of the things that I see, that I hear all the time, is that there were things I never knew. I didn't know about this. I didn't know how to make it better. I didn't understand about blame shifting. I didn't realize that, I had to take responsibility for my own actions and attitudes rather than blaming my wife or my husband. And just by getting that information has helped them to begin to look to themselves and then look to God. So I want to talk about the importance of having God in the center of our lives.
Oh, boy. If it wasn't for Jesus, we wouldn't be married today. We're married 57 years, and it was touch and go quite a few times for us, but God didn't give up on us.
No.
I like to say that even when we stopped working on our marriage, God was still working on us and working on it, because really He set our feet on the solid rock. And
Well, he knew that these problems that we had would do one of two things. They would either drive us further apart from one another or drive us closer to God, because we couldn't do it ourselves.
No.
And we had to come to the end of ourselves. So a lot of times we look at problems as being really the worst thing in the world, but they're actually can be
opportunities.
Yeah, they can wind up being great opportunities and probably one of the better things, because if it wasn't for the problems we had, we would never really dove into getting to know who God really was and how much He wanted to help us.
Right.
So, we always use this same formula that oneness with God equals oneness with our mate. So the key to getting past, your differences that divide is to celebrate your mate. And by celebrating your mate, you're going to learn how to love them unconditionally, which can only take place when you're closer to Him. So look at your problem today as something that actually is a positive if you turn to God. If you don't turn to God, things only get worse. And let me tell you something, they can even get worse than they really are. We're going to come right back after these few announcements, so stay tuned.
Are there areas in your life as an individual or as a couple that you want to change or you want to grow in? If you are seeking growth and are intentional about setting goals, we can help you. When difficult obstacles get in the way, your coach will challenge, encourage, and give accountability so you can get past the ruts in the road and past insecurities of moving forward to experience the success God has planned for you. You will have a support system based on biblical principles to challenge you and help clarify your vision to be your best. Coaching is not about looking back. It's about looking forward and growing. If you want to move from where you are to where you want to be, call us at 239-244-3912 or visit our website at breakingfreecc.com. Your life wins with a good coach.
Welcome back, everybody. We're going to talk about putting God into the center of our marriage. People think going to church is the answer to that. And I would say to them that it's not the answer. It is a part of an answer, but it's not the answer. It goes back to our own personal devotional life with the Lord.
Yes.
And talk about yours, because you have a very strong one. So talk about that a little bit.
My personal time with God, it's probably like a lot of other people, reading the Word, praying, and journaling. I'm a journaler from way back. I've been journaling since 1979 was my first journal. Oh, my God. And I've got them all. I've saved them all.
Am I a star in your journal?
You don't want to be a star in my journal, because usually the people that make my journal are the ones that are bugging me.
That's what I'm saying.
Yes.
Was I a star in your journal?
Yeah, probably sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
One of the important things that God showed me was that Michelle, you can't change anyone but yourself. And the reason why you think your husband is the problem is because you're expecting him to change, and you're blaming him for what's wrong, and you can't change anyone. So stop and look at yourself. And, that's where my journal has been invaluable. Because when I write out all my feelings and my emotions and my hurts and all this stuff, God has a way of showing me exactly myself and what, where I'm wrong and changing me.
Well, I know that I can't tell you where you're wrong, so
No,
I'm
you
glad that
can't.
God
you
can tell
better
you.
not tell me where I'm wrong.
And I think that's a good point, though, because a lot of times we try to do that with our mate.
Yes.
And that only makes it worse and drives people further away. But when God begins to do that,
Yes.
he does it in a way of love. He
Yeah.
does it in a way of mercy. And it really makes a big difference. So you
Yes,
come
definitely.
out of that time having a different, paradigm of the way you see your mate, the way you see your marriage. I know that's
Yes.
what happens to me.
Yeah.
So the more time you spend with him, the more you become like him.
Yes.
Because whoever you hang out with is who you're going to be.
Yeah.
I always use the idea that if I'm hugging you, then your perfume gets on me and I start to smell like you. Or vice versa, my cologne gets on you. So that's what happens. The sweetness of the Lord starts to come on you. And it really
Yes.
does make a difference in your marriage. It really, really does. In fact, that is the major bottom line formula. If you're going to get success or have success in your marriage, you have to make that your number one priority.
And God just doesn't want us to stop there.
No.
He wants us then to carry that over and have an spiritual intimacy with each other.
Yeah.
I like to say that Adam and Eve walked with God together in the cool of the day. His relationship just wasn't with Adam alone or Eve alone. It was as a couple.
Yeah. And, they were on each other's mind. I think that's the key. Even when Eve was tempted by the enemy, whether Adam did the right thing, of course we know he didn't, he still was there with her, even in the midst of it. So there was a camaraderie that happens. In other words, you don't have to be with your mate 24/7, but in your heart, they should be in your heart 24/7. And that can't happen unless you have God's imprint in your heart, and as he becomes that first in your life, because then your paradigm, the way you see things, changes. You begin to see your mate, your wife, your husband as a gift from God.
Yeah.
And it helps you to pray for them. It's hard when you're angry with somebody to pray for them. But when you're walking in the presence of God, whether you're angry or not at that moment of time, there is this great love that God gives you, unconditional love, that causes you to pray for your mate, which is the most important thing to do.
In fact, that's one of the topics we're planning on teaching this time in Sacred Marriage is growing together spiritually.
Yeah.
It's a precious, beautiful thing, and so few couples, even Christians that have been Christians for years and years, have that. The husband has his relationship with God. The wife has hers.
Yeah.
And it's like never the twain shall meet. And we learned years ago, because we're married and we have kids together, that we pray for the same thing, but you pray during your prayer time. I pray during my prayer time. And one time, this was years and years ago, we were going through such a trial with one of our kids. And I don't know how we did it, but we started praying together. And we had been praying about this for years. Not years, maybe months and months.
It felt like years.
It felt like years, with no answer. But when we started praying that together, bringing it to God, 2 weeks' time, the answer was there.
Yeah.
And we said, why did it take us so long? Because this God has put power between a husband and wife that we don't take advantage of.
He says, where two or three are gathered together,
Yes.
he's in the midst of us, and that's what marriage really does.
Yes.
It gives a space, a place for God to rest, and he wants to come and rest, but we have to invite him, and we have to make sure that he's comfortable, and he's comfortable when we pray.
Yeah.
He wants to come when we worship him together. And remember, where God is, the devil can't be.
That's
So
right.
you have a great opportunity to see things change. But of course, we know, and we'll talk about this the next time we come together about spiritual warfare, which is really a big deal. He does the enemy. There is an enemy called Satan who does not want us to come together in unity. Doesn't not want us to have God's presence in the middle of us, and he certainly doesn't want us to get closer to God. That is the key to your marriage success. Now, even if your mate doesn't do it, if you do it, you're going to become what I call a change agent, because your life will change. Whenever you have an encounter with God, your life will change, and that will affect the person that you're with in a major, major way. I want to just mention to you about Breaking Free Living Well for a moment. The telephone number for Breaking Free Living Well, whether it be marriage coaching or marriage counseling, or whether it be some inner healing or even life coaching, the telephone number is 239-244-3912. That's 239-244-3912. The address is 1520 Royal Palm Square Boulevard, Suite 320. You can call us anytime. If we're not in the office for whatever reason, we have an answer machine. We'll call you right back. And if you need that kind of help, we're willing to do that as well. Also, remember, Sacred Marriage is going to be starting on the 17th of September, and that's open to you, and that is free. Sometimes we need a little bit more. We need to deal with some issues in our life, and we need some of that marriage coaching or marriage counseling. And of course, there is a fee for that, but it's an amazing, amazing time with God's wisdom flowing through the counselors like you and I.
It's Christ-like counseling. It's not like you would
that's a good
get
point.
when you go to a psychologist. This is biblically based, Christ-like counseling.
Yeah. And it makes a difference. We have a lot of stories, and next time we come together, we'll have some testimonies that hopefully encourages you to continue on. We desire that your life become better, to break free and then learn how to live well. That's what that's all about, breaking free and then learning how to live well. And that is a whole process. It's a commitment to a new, different lifestyle. If it works, you want to stick with it. If the old doesn't work, then why would you continue to do the same thing over and over again? Well, thank you for joining in. This is our first time together, but we're going to be going on with you, and hopefully you'll tell your friends and neighbors and tune in and join with us. We'd love to hear from you as well. God bless you. We'll see you next week.
Has your marriage fallen into a full-blown wildfire? If divorce has been threatened or even papers filed, God has the power to restore what seems impossible. Maybe a revealed affair or a secret sin exposed, or other areas of breakdown have seeped into your marriage. With godly counsel, we can help you walk through the transitions and changes to resolve these issues, developing a closer relationship with God and with each other. It's never too late. If your marriage is unraveling, you can avoid ending your marriage. God has the power to bring reconciliation and restoration. If you and your spouse are struggling with unresolved issues or ready to call it quits, don't give up. Instead, give us a call. 239-244-3912 or visit us at breakingfreecc.com. We are compassionate and care about the destiny God has for you.